Good evening, all. It's rare that I find a science fiction series that I've never heard of, let alone never seen, but that happened to me this week, and I kind of binged watched it because I found it quite interesting and fun, and it's Star Maidens from the UK and West Germany. It's a co-production. And made in 1975, it wasn't broadcast till 1976. It stars Liz Heron, Gareth Thomas, who many of you know as Raj Blake from Blake 7, um, Christiane Kruger, and Pierre Brice, Christian Quadflieg, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, Derek Farr, Dawn Addams, and quite a raft of guest stars as well. It was produced by a guy named James Gatward. It was created by Eric Pace from an idea by a man named, and again, I hope I pronounced this correctly, Joost Graf von Hardenberg. And it takes place, it's about a planet called Medusa, which originally was in the Proxima Centauri star system, but a big comet passed by their planet, which was very sophisticated and had these great surface cities that were all destroyed by this comet that passed very close by, and they were forced to move underground. It also pulled them out of their orbit into the orbit of Earth's solar system, 4 light years away. So a very powerful comet. Again, scientifically improbable, but it's kind of an interesting idea. And the society on Medusa is matriarchal. Women rule, and men are the servants and repairmen, and a lot of them are called quote-unquote domestics, or basically what it sounds like, domestics. And two of them, a repairman by the name of Shem, who was played by Gareth Thomas, and a domestic by the name of Adam, played by Pierre Brice, decide they're going to escape. They've heard about Earth. They sent probes to, the Medusans sent probes to Earth, but when they found out that our governments are mostly patriarchal, they found that, primitive and backward, and they weren't going to have anything to do with us, so they forbid people from coming to Earth. Well, Adam and Shem steal a space yacht that's owned by Adam's mistress, who is called Octavia, and she's played by Christiane Kruger. And they think, oh, men are too stupid; they can't fly a spaceship. Well, they figure it out, and everything's run by computers. So all they have to do is figure out how to operate the computer. They don't have to actually figure out how to fly the spaceship, because the computer will do that for them. And they fly it to Earth. They're picked up by a radio telescope in England, and as a UFO, basically, and they're trying to communicate with them, and they're not successful, but they think they're coming in too fast. They send them actually data. They send them coordinates to slow their orbit and to get into a safe orbit of Earth. And they arrive, and it looks like they're being pursued by the spaceship from Medusa, which is flown by Octavia. It's called Nemesis, and sort of a donut or torus-shaped spaceship, sort of ovoid. And the models were pretty good. The model work it's not up to like, Space 1999 or even UFO, but it was kind of interesting. A lot of them are obviously matte shots or very small models, but and they're not up to the quality of, the models of Derek Meddings, but they were still, okay for the time. They look kind of like bad Doctor Who props and sets. The fashions were quite good. They're all, though one thing I should say here, this is supposed to be, like I said, a matriarchal, somewhat feminist society where females are dominant, but women still dress kind of like eye candy, which I thought was a little inimical to that idea. And, they wear short skirts and very tight, outfits that are very tight across the bosom and bare midriff, and, boots, and in outlandish, bright colors. The wardrobe was done by a lady named Dulcie Midwinter, and obviously she took some inspiration from Rudy Gernreich's Space 1999 designs, and some of the things, like some of the spacesuits, look somewhat similar, but they're obviously rather a lot cheaper. And a lot of this was filmed, in England, and some of it was filmed in Germany, and those scenes, they kind of, unfortunately, kind of weaken the thing a little bit. Anyway, I'm not going to give you a précis of the whole series, but Adam and Shem arrive on Earth, and they're pursued by Octavia and Flavia, who is played by Judy Geeson, and they are trying to get them back because they want them back on Medusa, and Adam and Shem are trying to escape. Other characters come in, like they kidnap, in order to get Adam and Shem back, they kidnap two Earth scientists. One of them's named Liz, and she's played by Liz Heron, and the other one is Dr. Rudy Schmidt, played by Christiane Quadflieg, and they are taken to Medusa by another Nemesis 2, I think, is the other ship, and they're sort of forced to work, and Rudy is not treated well, even though he has good ideas. And the problem that I have with the show, and I think people had with that, the series I should mention was only lasted one series of 13 episodes, and then it was canceled. They did not renew it, and partly because the costs of the episodes was somewhat prohibitive, but also because it was not that well received. And I think I understand that it's looked at in England apparently as sort of Space 1999's poorer cousin. And it actually uses a lot of the sound effects and some background music, and things like machine noises are actually from Space 1999. So the two productions obviously borrowed a bit from each other. Like I said, the special effects, which are not bad. I mean, they have some good, interesting ideas, and set decoration and set dressing. The set dresser was a guy named Mike Ford. They did a really good job, I thought. The city looks very futuristic, the city of Medusa, and they have very similar designs to Space Nine. A lot of white plasticine and geometric shapes, and chairs that look like, Eames chairs, sort of, and it very much fits the period design-wise. I think one of the problems that I had, and I think a lot of people had with the show, is that it couldn't decide what it wanted to be. There are some comedy episodes. There's a lot of kind of Keystone Cops kind of stuff where they're trying to chase after Rudy and Shem, and they narrowly escape, and they rig a police car to drive itself, so the police are following this car and they're not in it because they can drive it by remote control, and all kinds of goofy kind of stuff. One of them is like a parody of urban life. It's called The Perfect Couple, in which Adam and Flavia pretend that they're a couple, and they live in a suburb of London, and they're acting like a suburban couple. Only their roles are reversed. He's doing all the cleaning and cooking and complaining about, oh, I sit and clean up the house all day while you go to work. And it's very funny in that way. A parody of middle English life at the time. But other episodes are completely serious, like what have they done to the rain, is about an environmental disaster and how it's fixed. And it's kind of like a global warming preview, which they didn't use that term back then, but they use very similar terms and the similar solution that they come up with to it, which was really good. Again, very serious. I thought that was interesting. The next couple of episodes, one of the things that's interesting, they have a quote-unquote destiny computer. And the destiny computer predicts what's going to happen to Medusa and Medusan society. And sometimes it's wrong, which I thought was kind of interesting. The idea that there's a destiny, but it's not always right. It depends on, for one thing, a lot of the information has to be input, and then it computes what the likely outcome is. It's not always right, which I thought is kind of interesting. And one called The End of Time, their leader, Clara, who is played by the very beautiful Dawn Addams, dies, apparently, and they can't figure out why she died, and there's a competitors trying to take her place and be elected the next president, called Theta, and she is played by, I kept looking at this girl's face and saying, I know her from somewhere. It was Barbara Trentham, who was in Rollerball that same year, 1975, or actually it was 74, so it was a year earlier. But I recognized her. That was the girl who played Daphne, who they tried to get Jonathan to sign or to read his retirement announcement. So she plays a bad guy again or bad girl, I should say, again in that episode. And that's kind of interesting. Everything is suspended when the president dies until the next president is elected. And literally, time ends. They don't recognize time is going forward until there's a new president elected. But there's something wrong, and they want to do. Theta doesn't want them to do an autopsy, and Flavia insists on it. And the computer, the doctor who performs the autopsy is an android. All their doctors are androids in this society, and says there's she's supposed to be dead, but her heart's still beating. I said, "What do you mean her heart's beating? She's dead." Or she's dreaming. So she's dreaming. They say, how can you tell? And how could she be dreaming if she's dead? It turns out she has a very faint heartbeat, and now they're trying to figure out what's going on. They've invited Professor Evans and one of the other Earth people back to negotiate the exchange of the two Earth doctors and the two Earthmen for Adam and Shem coming back. And they find the city in this strange state. Anyway, the Professor Evans is actually a medical doctor as well, and he says, "Oh, I understand. I think I know what she's got. She's got streptococcus, which is just a virus." And they say, "Well, we don't have anything to cure things like that here on Medusa." He says, "I do," and he's got a needle in his bag full of antibiotics, which is something they don't know on Medusa because they don't catch viruses. So he injects Clara with this antibiotic, and she gets better and recovers, and then time starts again. And now Theta is put on trial because she had ordered the professor and a woman who was helping him, and I think it was Liz and Rudy, rather, out onto the surface of the firm execution because there's no oxygen on the surface of Medusa, and they would have suffocated. But they're brought back, and that they're alive, and that they revive them. I thought was good and interesting episode. The final episode, there are only 13, like I said, there are only 13 episodes. The final episode is called The Enemy, and it reveals something we didn't know for the whole series, that the Medusans have an enemy who followed them from the Proxima Centauri, the galaxy where this is a mistake too. They say a different galaxy. Well, it's not. Proxima Centauri is not in another galaxy. It's another solar system, but it's not. It's in our galaxy. It's in the Milky Way. But they say that they had an enemy, and they say, well, what enemy? Well, we don't really know. And the two ships are going to make an exchange. The Nemesis and Nemesis 2 are going to exchange Adam and Shem for Dr. Liz and Dr. Schmidt. And this has been agreed between the two governments. And they send this communication by a radio telescope from Earth, and there's another ship that's positioned between Earth and the ship coming from Medusa. And it hears the message, and it plays it back in this sort of robotic voice. Just hearing that tape sends Shem into like a fit. And he says, "I can't breathe," and he like passes out. And he says, "Don't play the tape again. Don't play it again." And so they don't. And they say, "Well, what does that mean? Why was he asking that?" Well, then they won't tell them on Earth, but Octavia, who's on the ship coming back from Medusa, says that they had an enemy, and the enemy pursued them relentlessly in the Centauri system, and it's later, it's stated that Medusans don't have weapons. They don't kill. They won't kill. They have immobilizing weapons that will immobilize somebody for a few minutes. But it's not a stunner, and it's also not a weapon. It doesn't cause any permanent harm. So all they have are defensive systems on these ships. At a certain point, Rudy says, "Well, tell me about this defense shield. It projects a shield of radiation?" And they say, "Yes." And the enemy ship is coming towards them. And he says, "Well, what if we project the radiation at them?" And they say, "Well, we can't let you do that. That would be like a weapon." He said, "No, it's not. It's just a shield." And he fires it at them, and it fires a beam of radiation which affects the ship, and it has to turn back. But now it's headed towards the ship coming from Earth, and they have to do something similar. And on that ship, Flavia is trying to prevent Adam from using their shield in the same way. And she says, we can't do it. We're Medusas. We don't do that. We don't attack. She says, we have to do it. We have to save them. And he insists that they do it, despite the fact that Flavia gives him an order. He says, I'm not taking orders anymore, and does it, and it deflects the enemy ship away, and that they flee. And then they say, they do the exchange, and they're going to go back. And finally, Octavia says, I think Adam, they said, did you do that, Octavia? And she says, no, it was Adam. Or did you do that, Flavia? Says, no, it was Adam. They said, well, maybe things have changed, and you start seeing that maybe they're getting a little bit of grudging respect for men and their ability to do things. I thought it was interesting. I thought it was well done. I thought, like I said, the special effects were pretty good. It just couldn't decide whether it was fish or fowl. If it was a comedy, it should have been done just purely as a comedy. If it was going to be serious episodes of science fiction like Space 1999, they could have done it that way. But they decided they were going to do all this kind of crazy, wacky Keystone Cop kind of thing in the middle, and I think they could have done without that. Again, though, it's worth watching. All the episodes are available for free on YouTube, and I can't highly recommend watching it. It's not really that good, but it's interesting. And at points in some of the episodes, there's some very innovative things, which I didn't mention because I think you should discover it for yourself. Really good. Star Maidens from 1975.